Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about conditional statements. So our topic is conditional statements. Okay, I need you to write a few things down for me. It's not on your note sheet. Okay, I just need to write down a few definitions of what conditional statements are. Okay, so the definition of a conditional statement is a statement that can be written in the form if P then Q. Okay, so basically what it's saying, if this happens, then that happens. Okay, so write that down. You also need to know that the hypothesis is the part P of a conditional. Okay, the hypothesis is the part P of the conditional statement following the word if. Okay, so P is the hypothesis. The conclusion is part Q. Okay, conclusion is part Q of a conditional statement following the word then. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, we're just going to go through some examples on finding the hypothesis and finding the conclusion of each of these statements. Okay, so your first example says, if today is Thanksgiving Day, then today is Thursday. Okay, so remember your hypothesis is the part Q. Okay, your hypothesis is the part Q, and that is the words following if. Okay, the words following if. Okay, so the words following if are today is Thanksgiving Day. Okay, so that would be your hypothesis. And then you want to find your conclusion. Your conclusion are the words that are after then. The words that are after then. Okay, so let's mark this in red. The words after then, today is Thursday. So that would be your conclusion. Okay, so your statement, if today is Thanksgiving Day, then today is Thursday. So your hypothesis, the words after if, today is Thanksgiving Day. And your conclusion are the words after the word then, today is Thursday. Okay, let's just work through a couple more. Okay, this one says, a number is divisible by 3 if it is divisible by 6. Okay, your hypothesis, or the educated guess you're making, is that a number is divisible by 3. So that would be your hypothesis. Okay, and then you want to find your conclusion, and you know your conclusion. Oops, excuse me. I made a mistake. Erase this. Okay, completely ignore what I said right here. Okay, that beginning part is going to be your conclusion. Sorry. And your hypothesis is going to be your word that is after if. That's after if. Okay, so the words after if, I'll underline in red. It is divisible by 6. Okay, so that would be your hypothesis. Excuse me. Okay, so let's go through a couple more of these real quick like. Okay, we want to write a conditional statement from the following. Okay, we want to write a conditional statement. That's a if-then. So we need to identify our hypothesis and then identify our conclusion. our hypothesis is going to be an obtuse triangle. And our conclusion, when you assume that there's an obtuse triangle, is that it has one obtuse angle. And if you wanted to write a conditional statement about this, it would be if a triangle is obtuse, then it has exactly one angle. Okay? You just want to make sure that you have a if statement and a then statement. Okay? You want to have an if statement and a then statement. If a triangle is obtuse, then it has exactly one angle. Okay? Let's go ahead and write a conditional statement for example number 4, this picture. Okay? When you have these little pictures like this, okay, you're going to go ahead and assume that your hypothesis, I'll write it in blue, your hypothesis is going to be the inner of those circles. This is going to show up several times. Okay? Your hypothesis is going to be on the inside, and your conclusion is going to be on the outside. Okay, so let's write a conditional statement about this. Okay. For example, you could write if an animal is a blue jay, then it is a bird. Okay, so you hypothesized that you had an animal that was a blue jay, and because of that, your conclusion is that it is a bird. Okay, fairly straightforward. Okay, just remember that your hypothesis inside, your outside is conditional. Okay, let's look at example number 5. Okay, it says two angles that are complementary are acute. Your hypothesis is going to be that two angles are complementary. Okay, that's what you're assuming. And then your conclusion is that they are acute. Okay, so let's write this as a conditional statement. So you would write if two angles are complementary, then they are acute. Okay, make sure you have an if statement and a then statement to make your conditional statement true. So if two angles are complementary, then they are acute. Okay, next. Okay, on numbers 6, 7, and 8, you guys just need to go ahead and decide if the statement is true. And if it's not, you need to give a counterexample or explain why it is not true. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to example 9. Okay, we're going to talk about converse, inverses, and contrapositives. Okay, so when you have a conditional statement, sometimes they're going to ask you to write the converse, inverse, and contrapositive. Now, when it asks you to do that, you need to learn how to find P and Q. And remember, when you have conditional statements, it is if P, then Q. So you have if, and this is P. So if P, if an animal is an adult insect is going to be P. Then you have then, and after that is our Q. So if P, then Q. Now, if you want to write the converse statement, you will write it in the order Q, then P. Okay, so for example, Q, then P. So you would write if an animal has 6 legs. So you're just bringing in Q. If an animal has 6 legs, then you would bring in your P. An animal is an adult insect. An animal is adult insect. Okay, so Q then P. You bring in your Q first. If an animal has 6 legs, then bring in P. An animal is an adult insect. Okay, let's go ahead and write our inverse. And when you write your inverse, it will be not P, or the opposite of P goes to the opposite of Q. So if we were to write that same statement in the inverse, meaning the opposite of everything, you would write if, then bring in the opposite of P, if an animal is not an adult insect, then you would bring in your opposite of Q, then it does not have 6 legs. Okay, so that is your inverse. You're just doing the opposite of everything. Then, lastly, your contrapositive is going to be the opposite of Q leads to the opposite of P. Okay, so if you were to write that one out, you're just doing the opposite of Q. So it would say, if an animal does not have 6 legs, then it is not an adult insect. Okay, so we need to take our time familiarizing ourselves with contrapositives, inverses, and converses. Make sure you know that which part goes with P, the if statement, and which part goes with Q, the then statement. And go ahead and familiarize yourself with that, and then fill out your Google form and finish your homework. Talk to you later.